Welcome to another LPL Brief. This one is going to be about wuxx and NaMeis because I feel like I have discussed somewhat at length my thoughts with UZI and Peko, and people might be willing to sort of apply this thought process to the NaMeis and wuxx situation, and I actually think that these two situations are very different. For one thing, I think that with QG, you have two AD carries who are elite or approaching elite level at close to the height of their play, right? So these players are both very good right now. They're both very strong players with very high ceilings, and QG kind of need to make a decision, one way or the other, on which style they want to play to, because both players have different strengths and weaknesses, I think. This is not the situation that Royal find themselves in with wuxx and NaMeis. wuxx, so first of all, there's some background on Royals that they have two kind of complete rosters, and one has been playing in the LPPL, and both of these rosters have a lot of good players on them. You have Looper, Insec, or this isn't one team. You have Looper, MLXG, Wushin, Xiaohu, reverse those two obviously, Mata, who have been playing for the main lineup, and then the reserve roster is going to be Insec, Sass, NaMeis, and Lei. Both rosters have like 3 new or younger players and 2 veterans, let's say. But both of the veterans on the main lineup currently are Koreans. So you can't really substitute in, but there is one veteran player between the two rosters that's Chinese, and he's NaMeis, okay? So NaMeis is probably the most veteran player that can be added to the current lineup if they felt like they needed more of a veteran presence on the team. I don't necessarily think that this is something that they need. I think that they have Looper and Mata, and that's a pretty good setup for creating the rest of the roster. The last time we saw NaMeis in the LPL, they played the entire Reserve League roster against EPA, and they 2-0'd, but these were 2 very sloppy games, so you had the very definitive sense that one of these rosters is not as strong as the other one, that the other Royal roster is much stronger than the Reserve League. Today, I didn't really feel like that, because against Vici Gaming, who have been doing better, right, but they still lost to IG, they still aren't extremely strong right now. Royal were struggling a lot. Royal have a lot of problems, okay? This is ridiculous amount of problems that Royal have. I'm not just talking about something simple like, oh, they need to fix this approach to the macro game here. It's just almost everything that you can think of going wrong for Royal goes wrong. They really, honestly, I feel like at every point of the game, don't know what they're doing. They just are completely lost and oblivious, and everyone asks me, how does someone, a veteran like Mata, not know what to do? I don't know, but they don't know what to do. They honestly have no idea what they're doing. Usually what happens with Royal is that they just kind of pick standard lanes, they counter swap if they think the enemy team will lane swap, and they don't even, punish lanes or win lanes very decisively. I don't think Royal are a very good early game team. Their early game rating has been kind of meh and underwhelming overall. It's like average, and before that it was even below average. So they just lane, and a lot of times they break even in CS. Like Looper, I think, is exactly 0 for CS at 10. Sometimes Xiaohu is behind. Usually wuxx is ahead. Sorts of scenarios, and except for MLXG. MLXG is almost always ahead in CS at 10 minutes. He has the highest CS at 10 difference on average of any jungler in the league. That sort of indicates why Royal don't do a whole lot in the early game. It's just MLXG is farming. People have said to me, I don't think Dandy is that good in the jungle anymore. Well, if you're rating MLXG above Dandy as a jungler in the LPL right now, I don't have a lot to say, because I feel like we're using completely different criteria to judge junglers in this case. Maybe in the first series it's reasonable to say that because it looked kind of like MLXG was doing good things, but if you look more closely at the decision making, the creativity in the jungle pathing that Dandy had versus some of the decisions MLXG were making, just Dandy got more out of these instances. He did more with his time. He had a larger impact, and I really think it was Dandy as this sort of driving force of a jungler that made that series go to 3 games, not wuxx and Xiaohu messing up the team fights or anything like this. I think this had a definite presence in today's series as well, because I think Dandy just was more productive in general and had higher synergy with his mid laner, and they just got more shit done. But then around 20 minutes, Royal prep for Baron. They get some fights because they all have very skilled players, and then they get the Baron, and they get this monstrous lead off of getting the Baron, and are able to end the game. They're very good at closing once they get this lead, but they don't know what they're doing. They just don't. Sometimes they get caught out for no reason. Sometimes it seems like the communication isn't there. You notice when I talk about this, I didn't once explicitly mention wuxx. I explicitly mentioned MLXG. I even explicitly mentioned Xiaohu. I did not explicitly mention wuxx at any point. I don't think wuxx is exceptional. I think he's probably the worst player on the main lineup. It's him. It's wuxx. He's probably the worst player on the main lineup, but I don't think he's bad, because I don't think Royal really have bad players on either lineups. He has a relatively good mechanical ceiling. He's not exceptionally smart, and I don't think that he can be an elite carry. A lot of times people will tend to go one way or the other when they're judging a player. They might say that he's exceptional, or they might say he's shit. And most players are in the middle. Honestly, there are a lot of different ways to be an elite AD carry, like UZI. He's really good at one particular style, and he plays the style all the time, and he's the best at the style, and teams that succeed with UZI on the roster play this style really well and learn to play around it really well. That's one way to be elite. I think NaMei, at his prime, he was very adaptable, and he could fit into what his team needed, and he had a bunch of versatility in the sense. He was very self-sufficient, so I think that this is another way that NaMei was elite. Wei Xiao, the point is that there are a bunch of different ways to be an elite carry. I don't see any of those things in wuxx. When I watch wuxx play, I see someone who has questionable decision making. He's not like as smart or creative as some of these self-sufficient AD carries, and he doesn't get as much out of situations where he's going into a fight or he sees an opportunity. He can't like properly time a skill shot, or he isn't maximizing, oh, if I flash here at this point, then I'll miss this, and then I can use my QSS at this mark. You don't such. He can take advantage of a lot of situations, and he's very peel reliant, but he gets stuff done in that context, and that's great. I think that wuxx at his best is can be a steal back type player, where he can be the carry of the team. He can be really good in this sense, but he's gonna have a very definite ceiling where he's never gonna be elite. And I feel like I can say this about wuxx because I've watched him play for a year in the LPL. I've watched him play for a good part of his LSPL career, and I thought I was really high on him initially. I thought I saw a lot of promise, but since he's had more experience at this high league, you have a better flavor for the overall package of what wuxx is. And wuxx is in a position now where he could really get a lot out of who he is. He could really expand as a player and maybe hit that steelback type ceiling that we're talking about. With Mata, with Looper, with a bunch of really good players on his team, with a support staff that's theoretically not terrible. You kind of have this idea of wuxx is potentially known quantity. Okay. I get a little bit annoyed when people make comments like, oh, 4 of the best AD carries in the league are on 2 teams. Because I wouldn't put wuxx in the same category as Pekko or UZI or NaMei. Now that I've gone through all of this and given my thoughts on wuxx, a lot of people are probably going to think that I'm going to say they should start NaMei. I actually think they should start wuxx. This might be surprising to many of you, especially since I just said that wuxx isn't in the same category as NaMei as a player. I fundamentally believe this when NaMei was at his peak. Right now, NaMei has done not much of anything in the Reserve League or in his recent pro matches to suggest to me that he honestly still gives a shit about anything. A lot of times players, they get a little bit older and different priorities matters to them. They want stream following, they want to have girlfriends, they want to go out on the weekends, they want various other things in their life that seem much more important to them as they get older. I think NaMei's kind of at that stage when I watch him now because he just doesn't show the same things with the same consistency that he used to have. NaMei, for me, used to be this incredibly consistent player who could always find a way to look good in a situation. He wasn't super flashy like UZI, but he could position effectively. He could get this done or this. And there was a part in his career where he was super flashy too, but that was great. That was NaMei. I don't see that from him. Honestly, he had the great pentakill, and that was amazing because their team wouldn't have won without him playing that fight the way he did, and he shouldn't have been able to play that fight the way he did. The rest of the series was really underwhelming. He got caught. He did really poorly in lane. Him and Mata had really abysmal synergy, and he did say that there wasn't a lot of practice with this lineup because he's been spending most of his scrim time playing with Lei and the reserve team with Insec and things like this, but so maybe this NaMei Mata bot lane is something that still needs to develop. You could see there were some issues with it early on in the game because Mata kind of walked over to the camps without NaMei, and NaMei was still in the river, and you weren't sure if NaMei was supposed to go with him, but Mata got caught and chunked down to a ridiculous amount of health. And that already kind of lost the lane for them, and then they engaged, and it was a whole disaster. Is that there could be some time to ramp up with this kind of pick, but I think for now, wuxx is a better choice, just because I think you can get more out of wuxx. You can find a place for him to fit into your team. You can make Xiaohu or Looper more of the carry, and this is also a problem that I think Royal have, is I think that Looper and wuxx and Xiaohu are both of the type of player who are solid and reliable, right? Who aren't going to fuck up for you. They're going to support you extremely well, but they're not going to be the flashy, awesome carry. And so Royal kind of lack that guy, and they want wuxx to be this guy, so they give him a bunch of resources and stuff like this, and they want wuxx and MLXG to be these guys, right? But it's not working out because I think wuxx has a lot of inconsistencies right now. It's not working out because I think MLXG have a lot of inconsistencies right now. So maybe they want this out of NaMei. And if they want this out of NaMei, it has to be even better than he was last year for this to be the case. Because last year he was playing pretty well, and he had good positioning, and he had some games where he just hard carried, but there were other times where he just did dumb shit. And I think that if they really, this kind of team that wants to be a top team, wants to rely on NaMei as their carry, he has to be way better than before. So wuxx, I think, can at least try to meet these demands a little bit more, or might have this motivation. NaMei right now hasn't suggested to me that he does. So if you do NaMei, show me. That's what I want. Okay? Of course I want NaMei to do well. NaMei was one of my favorite League of Legends players to watch ever. So, I guess this is my challenge. Until then, wuxx is my pick for Royal Club A to carry. Let's talk a little bit about the other two series since we have some time. The first series, EDG versus IG. Edward Gaming were showing off a lot of the stuff they've been developing. They had a much better sense for splitting the map and map pressure, things like this. Playlove still plays a ridiculous AP Evelyn. His understanding of flanks are so good that he can make Evelyn work right now with full AP. Game 2, you had it was weird because they were trying to fight in situations where they shouldn't fight, and IG both games had a much better late game team fighting comp, but EDG brought the games to late game in both instances and still were able to kind of maneuver around these fights, but not theoretically in the way that you would think that they would, which is to play against them. They had some instances of good map play. They did some good invades, but there were just some really terrible tower dives in general. So EDG, we can say after this IG series, they do look better. Some of the changes they've been doing are effective against top teams, but they're not polished at all. So this is a big problem for them. Second series, OMG versus Hyper Youth Gaming, there's honestly not a lot to say about this. I mean, it was one-sided. I think the Nautilus Quinn combo is really good. OMG played it with Quinn mid, Nautilus top. I think LGD have done it very cleverly with Nautilus mid, Quinn top. We see the better teams using ZZ Rot a lot more. And I just went over a lot of stuff in the RNG VG game. Other than Dandy is really good, okay? A whole other issue. I should actually make a separate video about this. So LPL Brief. I should now watch EU promos. Better, right? But they still lost to IG. They still aren't extremely strong right now. Royal were struggling a lot. Royal have a lot of problems, okay? This is ridiculous amount of problems that Royal have. I'm not just talking about something simple like, oh, they need to fix this approach to the macro game here. It's just almost everything that you can think of going wrong for Royal goes wrong. They really, honestly, I feel like at every point of the game, don't know what they're doing. They just are completely lost and oblivious, and everyone asks me. Welcome to another LPL Brief. This one is going to be about wuxx and NaMei, because I feel like I have discussed somewhat at length my thoughts with UZI and Peko, and people might be willing to sort of apply this thought process to the NaMei and wuxx situation, and I actually think that these two situations are very different. For one thing, I think that with QG, you have two AD carries who are elite or approaching elite level at close to the height of their play. wuxx Xiaohu, reverse those two obviously, Mata, who have been playing for the main lineup, and then the reserve roster is going to be Success, NaMei, and Lei. Both rosters have like 3 new or younger players and 2 veterans, let's say. But both of the veterans on the main lineup currently are Koreans. So you can't really substitute in, but there is one veteran player between the two rosters that's Chinese, and he's NaMei, okay? So NaMei is probably the most veteran player that can be added to the current, right? So these players are both very good right now. They're both very strong players with very high ceilings, and QG kind of need to make a decision one way or the other on which style they want to play to, because both players have different strengths and weaknesses, I think. This is not the situation that Royal find themselves in with wuxx and NaMei. wuxx, so first of all, there's some background on Royals that they have 2 kind of complete rosters, and one has been playing in the LPPL, and both of these rosters have a lot of good players on them. You have Looper, Insec, or this isn't one team. You have Looper, MLXG lineup if they felt like they needed more of a veteran presence on the team. I don't necessarily think that this is something that they need. I think that they have Looper and Mata, and that's a pretty good setup for creating the rest of the roster. The last time we saw NaMei in the LPL, they played the entire Reserve League roster against EPA, and they 2-0'd, but these were 2 very sloppy games. So you had the very definitive sense that one of these rosters is not as strong as the other one. That the other Royal roster is much stronger than the Reserve League. Today, I didn't really feel like that, because against Vici Gaming, who have been doing